joined by Dr. Einat Wilf, former MP of the Israeli parliament and also an author of The War of Return, How Western Indulgence of the Palestine Dream Has Obstructed the Path to Peace. Thank you very much for giving us your time. Thank you for joining me here on Times Now. And I hope I got your name right. The Indian Prime Minister today has sent out a message to the entire world saying India stands strongly with Israel and is against any form of terrorism. Your response, first of all, to that?
We very much appreciate that. We appreciate the friendship of India, the fact that the Prime Minister issued that statement. I will add, and also relating to the discussion you just had, the word terrorism begins to feel small, inadequate in the face of the bloodthirsty massacre. We're talking about Nazi-level images from the Holocaust. We're talking about Nazi-level images of brutality, actions of burning families alive, of point-blank shooting people into mass graves. Terrorism doesn't even begin to capture. We're still having discussions that belong to a world that no longer exists. For over a century, the Palestinians in all their organizations have always said, Itbach al-Yahud, we want to slaughter the Jews. But people didn't want to hear that, so they would translate it as resist Israel or fight the occupation. But when given the chance, the moment they had the chance, this is what they did, gleefully, happily, sharing their photos, their happiness at the bloody massacre of families, of children, the kidnapping of elderly. So the word terrorism doesn't even begin to capture what has actually happened.
Right. You know, there has to be a condemnation of what we are witnessing today without any condition, without any doubt. What can you tell us about, the hostage situation? What is Israel going to do now about that?
One of the things is that over the years, Hamas has always taken hostages, and the world somehow accepted that it doesn't have to abide by any kind of standard. So whereas the Red Cross immediately in situations of war expects to see prisoners, hostages, check on their situation, Hamas has always been exempt, and we accept that it takes prisoners, it takes hostages, and now it hasn't taken soldiers. It's taken elderly women without their medicine. It's taken entire families. We saw pictures of a mother holding her two babies as she's being taken hostage. We know nothing about them. The Red Cross is completely AWOL. We're not hearing anything from the Red Cross, a demand to go see them. We should be seeing members of the Red Cross. We should be seeing the head of the Red Cross standing at the border of Gaza and demanding to go see the hostages. Otherwise, what is the Red Cross good for? That's exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Now, in terms of strategy, are we also looking at a situation when Israel decides that there will be a ground invasion? One, two, today, of course, there are individuals who are celebrating what Hamas has done and, in fact, pointing fingers at Israel, saying Israel has been the oppressor for too long now. How do you respond to both?
Again, this is the only way to begin to understand it is to think in terms of Nazi ideology. People couch it in terms that we think are rational. Palestinians are oppressed. No. Everything Israel did for the last century has been an effort to make sure that Palestinians do not have the opportunity to carry out what they clearly stated they always wanted to do, which is slaughter the Jews. It's never been about the two-state solution or freedom from occupation or a two-state solution. Those are limited and rational goals that the Palestinians could have always achieved, but those were never their goals. Their goals were always for the Jews not to have a state, for the state of Israel not to exist, and specifically to slaughter the Jews who are trying to have their state. So it was never about rational issues. And this is where almost everyone that discusses this confuses cause and effect. The cause is the Palestinian ideology that can really only be understood as Nazi. And we know, if you study history, we know that Nazi ideology was inserted into the Arab world in the 30s and 40s, and they continued with it. This is an ideology that is implacable. It's not about finding compromise. This is the cause of everything. It's not the outcome.
Right. Dr. Wilf, going back to the first question that I asked you, in terms of strategic decisions, now airstrikes continue. Is ground invasion going to be the next step?
We don't know. This is clearly not something that's going to be discussed. The one thing that Israel is completely united behind is what was cannot continue. How this will be achieved, I don't know. But it's very, very clear that the old world of just having some limited wars or back and forth, that will not stand. This ideology, for Nazi Germany, it had to be defeated, it had to be occupied, and then the entire people of Germany had to go through a process of denazification so that the ideology, the anti-Semitism, that hatred that allowed them to do what they did to the Jews will be gone. And the Palestinians need to go through a process which is nothing less than denazification of their entire ideology and ethos for the last century.
Dr. Wilf, now, of course, Israel has said this, and the Prime Minister has reiterated that Israel is out to finish Hamas and end their military capabilities. Once and for all, they want to end Hamas. What do you plan to do about the countries that have not just supported Hamas in the past, they stand with it today, and also funding them?
We now understand that this was never a limited issue. There is a broad support, a financial network, of political support. And a lot of what we're seeing, and this is why it means a lot that the president of India, the prime minister, issued his statement. We have statements from countries in the West. And what's important is we don't want those words of support only when we are massacred. We want those words of support when we actually are going to fight back, because this is what we're going to do. And fighting back clearly will not be limited just to the question of Gaza and its military capabilities, but the entire financial and political network that sustains them.
Right, Dr. Wilf, the world, of course, watches with horror the terror that is being unleashed by Hamas there, and actually at the same time also praying and hoping that peace prevails, that there's an end to violence and there's end to innocent lives being snuffed. There's an end to this massacre. Thank you very much, Dr. Wilf, for joining us on the broadcast. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank you to our viewers as well for watching us here on The News Are at 9.